there guys, it's Joey and this is going to sort of be a question and answer type video concerning the Morrigan. It's question time with Joey. I've had a number of questions lately, requests, thoughts put across to me and things concerning the Morrigan in particular. There are going to be a few questions which sort of transverse that a little bit like new beginner type questions and requests and things. So first and foremost, it was requested that Bran make a reappearance. There you go. You're famous now. You have an ego next, won't you? So there we go, there's Bran. Okay. So the next one was actually a email I got through YouTube. So first and foremost, if you send me an email through YouTube, it may take me a while to notice it's there because YouTube doesn't tell me I get messages. So, especially when I've been sick and things, I forget that I've not checked it. I'm a bit less sometimes anyway. Okay, and it was questions and things from Andrew and Veronica. And he asked if I would read the invocation and poetry that he sent concerning the Morrigan. And there was a concern that I said daughters of Morrigan in one of my videos rather than sons and daughters. In the older videos I did say daughters more than sons and daughters. In the more recent videos, sons and daughters should be every time. I'm fully aware there are males that follow the Morrigan. That's not to take away from them whatsoever. It's just when I'm thinking at a mile a minute, which I do, I just go daughters in my head because that's how I get spoken to. And that's what I am. I'm a woman, so daughter is the natural sort of thought process in my head. There's no nothing against men at all that follow the Morrigan. I know there are men that follow the Morrigan. That's not to say that you cannot be a son. Of course you can. It's just in some of the earlier videos that I, skipping ahead, not thinking, just talking and feeling and expressing, which I tend to do with the Morrigan videos a lot more because it just comes from in here, and sometimes I just don't think to add sons and daughters. So there you go. So there was that. And would I read the Hail Morrigan, great dark mother goddess, great goddess of war, life, birth, sex, death, great goddess of rivers, lakes, and the element water, great goddess yin, strength, great goddess destruction, fertility, queen of demons, great phantom queen, great goddess of magic, great goddess of justice, and great goddess of war grounds, death, destruction, life, birth, profundity, ethereal essence, emerald, turquoise, forest of glade beam, deep, dark, and secret sea, but nothing undone and unheard of within the great way, Celtic heart and stone of the ancient earth, but you are, but what, of whom, where to, and where thou. I follow the great yin now, great Shakti of Celtic strength, war and flowing beam in endless circles to fight and fight and fight, for she who's the dark war and battle will surely triumph in the end. Over the male phallic uprising of the light, this is earth, this is everywhere, for no redeemer of love standeth sure without strength from the goddess herself. Thank you for listening, for all of you that are, so mote it be, Amon. Okay, so it was asked that I would read it and say my thoughts and things. I think there are some interesting concepts in here. There are some that I don't agree with. I would never associate her with demonic energy personally. Also, I'm not entirely sure about phallic uprising of the light. For me, there is duality within the Morrigan. The Morrigan is male and female and primal and ancient, and we must focus as much on the light as the dark. And this is a question that I have also received from someone else, and let's address that now. The Morrigan is known as a dark goddess, and because of this we sometimes seem to forget that the light and dark coexist. And he actually sent as well a picture of yin and yang, which kind of cements that idea. So perhaps this is what he was wondering of whether or not I was going to say about it or not. Light and dark in balance, the things must be in balance. Now, Moonlit Opal actually had a video where she was talking about the balance, and the balance was like this. The balance isn't ever rigid. The balance is flowing and moving, and you know, we're not talking a stationary balance between two polar opposites of male and female, yin and yang, dark and light, however you want to personify it, I guess. I do not believe in the whole that somehow that male and female are completely opposite and they don't flow into one another. You talked in your poem about her being of rivers, and rivers and primal energy is something I've discussed in the Danu video, and with regards to Morrigan as well, that they all flow to the underworld, the other world in Celtic mythology. They are life, death and birth, and therefore they are time in a river, but the river doesn't flow one way, it's circular. And therefore I don't feel there is any male uprising or anything. I think that, to be honest, the goddess is both, divinity is both, and yet neither. If that makes sense. It's abstract, and once I get into abstracts I'll be like that. We are both within our souls. We have male and female energy within ourselves, and yeah. I'm not sure about yin. I see, like yin and yang. Okay. Okay, so I follow the Great Yin kind of suggests that somehow yin and yang are divorced from one another, and if you actually look at the yin and yang symbol, there is yin within yang and yang within yin, just the same way as I've described male and female being within balance, within flow, within the creation of life. There is male and female parts, and that facilitates birth, which facilitates life, which facilitates death, which facilitates rebirth. The cycles are all connected. There is no disengage, there is no greater energy to be male or female, there's no superiority, and it's just balance of all things. So that's something I did want to express with regards to this poem, which was lovely. But I do want to express that, again, I would never ever call the goddess demonic, because she's divine. And the way that we sort of classify what demonic is a sort of, it's a Christian term, and it's not something that interests me. And because it is a Christian term, it basically doesn't have much of a part of my path. I'm not interested in it. I understand there is going to be pagan gods that were demonized, and that's a whole other thing, you know, but I wouldn't call her that personally, because she's divine. She is more than that. She's all the concepts in balance, in flow, in flux. She's so much more than sort of human concepts of this, and I hope that makes sense. There's some beautiful work in here. I think you've done some beautiful work, Andrew. It's lovely. But I get a sense, and I might be completely wrong, but just because you are a son of Morrigan or a daughter of Morrigan doesn't mean that you should at any point feel that your gender makes any difference. Because the first time the Morrigan showed up to me as a guy, and I didn't realise it was the Morrigan. You know, I thought it was her priest or a messenger on her behalf, and no, it was her. Shape-shifting, constantly in flux, in motion. So celebrate who you are in all of your glory. With humbleness, humility. Okay. So it's me moving the camera. So there was that. I was asked to do that and comment on that. So there you go. That's that bit. I hope that was okay. I'm a bit when I'm reading other people's poetry, because it's obviously not coming from me. But it was beautiful, and yes, I know that guys follow the Morrigan, and absolutely, some of the nicest people I know are guys that follow the Morrigan, and. Okay, and the next questions and things actually came from a guy looking into the Morrigan, but there's something I need to address with this. I cannot tell you, and no human person can tell you whether you are chosen by the Morrigan or you are not. Nobody has that right, other than the goddess herself. Okay, so I talk about my experiences, my beliefs, what I have found, what I believe to be my truth, and what I believe to be a little bit on the side of things. But nobody has the right to tell a person, you are not beloved of a goddess. And there are going to be circumstances when people come to me and they're like, they want to know and connect and engage with the Morrigan, and I'm going to feel that it's probably not right for them. And unfortunately, it's one of those situations whereby, what do you say? Because you can't be like, and you can only offer advice and tales of caution and things of that nature, and say what you know in your heart and what you believe, and hope that they take the steps that are necessary for their path. Because it's not up to me to tell you, yes, you're a good candidate or not. And the other thing is, there's no mistaking the Morrigan, okay? Because she's unlike anything else. She's primal. She's ferocity embedded in love, I guess is a good way of putting it. She is not a goddess of X, Y, and Z, okay? She's a goddess of the whole shebang and then some. And the more I get to know her, the more I see she is maiden, mother, and crone in one. She is life, death, and rebirth in one. She is the labyrinth. She is the cycle. She is the triskel. And people may be able to apply this to their god and goddess as well. But I can only talk of what I know, and I only follow the Morrigan with Bridget. Bridget comes in and makes herself known with Morrigan's permission, and has appeared on 3 or 4 occasions now, three or four, and brought me one of my dearest friends. Bridget brought me one of my dearest friends, so hey Tracy. Right, so I can only speak of the Morrigan, so I can't speak to this and that. There are videos on my channel, and they should all be in the Morrigan playlist now. I went through and checked. So if you want to know certain things about the Morrigan, and make sure you watch those videos, and they should address most things, I think. I mean, if there's something that is not addressed, then I will I will come on camera. I am at your, no, I'm not at anybody's disposal, maybe brands. Okay, so the whole how do you know is a little bit of a difficult question. In my videos about connecting with the Morrigan, it was a lifetime process. I worked with God and Goddess in the abstract for most of my path, and it's only in recent years that the Morrigan made herself known as, you know, who she was. I had always prayed to Mother, and that felt natural to me, and I would commune with Mother Goddess, and right from being very, very young, and it was never weird to me, and that's who I sort of prayed to and communed with and spoke to and cried with and went to for help and things of that nature. And the Morrigan is called the Silent Watcher, and the Morrigan chooses her sons and daughters not around. Now that means that it doesn't matter how much you petition the Morrigan, if the Morrigan has not decided to make her presence known in your life, you are not going to hear from her, because that's her right as a goddess. That is within her power. It's not up to us. We're humans. We're little diddles that march along on the planet of life and go on our cycles and learn from something more than we are. And there's nothing wrong with realizing how little we know and you know, how little we will ever know in terms of the divine and the Morrigan in this case. But in terms of the path, you always have something to learn, and it's okay to acknowledge that you don't know that much about this god or this goddess or the divine. And oh, what I thought, excuse me, what I thought I knew was so much less than I realised. And life and the spiritual path is a journey, and the minute you think you know it all, you should give up, lie down and stop, because it's constantly growing and evolving and changing and transforming. Those cycles of life, death and rebirth, which we already mentioned, they're for life. They're for life. And the pagan path in particular is one about personal introspection, personal accountability, and personal taking charge of your life, your learning, your spiritual path. And because of this, you're going to get people that are truly moral and truly honourable, and they seek and they help and they do their best. And then you're going to get people who don't hold themselves up to those moral standards, those moral guidelines, and that's the inherent problem with paganism, or any religious path, I think, to be honest. What people will try and get away with. So I cannot tell you how the Morrigan, if she chooses you, will choose to reveal herself to you, either. There is no guideline, there is no pathwork, you know, there is no, this has happened to you, so this is the Morrigan. It doesn't work like that. She is a highly personalized primal goddess who's gonna tap into your individual path. People go on with the stereotypical symbols because it's easier, and to be honest with you, that's not what you should be looking for. I've said this about crows and ravens in the crows and ravens video. Crows and ravens were the last animal to show up to me. They were the last animal to show up to me in terms of visualization and in actuality. And now they're everywhere. They never leave. They never leave. They've actually nested out the front now as well as out the back. So I am surrounded wherever I go. But that's recent. That's not the first animal that showed themselves to me. The first animal that I ever saw in visualization and meditation and things of that nature was a wolf. There are 3 of them. There is a black wolf, a white wolf, and a grey wolf. 3: life, death, rebirth. Yeah, maiden, mother, crone. I always forget the first male one. It's so bad. Warrior, father, sage. It takes me a minute. I didn't forget it. It's in there. And then there's things like, there are other animals connected with her. The horse. There is no time of day associated with her. She's not a nighttime goddess, because if you start to delve into her myth and lore, which if she speaks to you, you should, you realise that Macha and possibly Ain, but Macha certainly is a solar goddess, and she's associated with the horse. So, the Morrigan is associated with the horse, which is a solar animal. She has solar elements to her, and she has lunar elements to her. She is primal. She is, I don't know what, this looks a bit like me holding jugs, so I'm not going to do that anymore. But I get what you're trying to do to me, but sexuality is one of her forefront things, and that's a fire thing, ladies and gentlemen. That is the realm of the solar fiery. Go for it. Be safe. So it's coming to realise that it's none of the things that just pop up in artwork. I understand the love of finding pictures of the Morrigan. I wonder if I can get a picture of that. I best think thing, and it may not work because my iPad's argumentative, to say the least. I will try while I talk to you. I understand the appeal of seeing visual representations of the Morrigan and that helping people. I truly understand that because I'm a visual person myself. But I've had the Morrigan show up in all 3 of her maiden, mother and crone elements, which is, for me, Anu, Macha and Bave. I've had her show up as the whole. I've had her show up as a guy. I've had her show up as a raven. I've had her just a voice. She shifts and shapeshifts and changes all the time. So, one idea of what the Morrigan is too simplified, and this is part and parcel of the reason I'm like, if you're a beginner, I wouldn't. If you're a beginner, I would highly recommend working in the abstract first before you seek out a matron or patron of any kind. I've said this before, I will say this again, because that means you are grounding yourself in the path, whatever your path is. And you can start off writing down all the things that have attracted you to it, all the things you're excited about, and keep that for when you're having low moments. Absolutely keep that. And I recommend the idea of the year in a day. Now that's Wiccan. You don't have to follow Wiccan to do that year in a day stuff. I would highly recommend it because it puts you in a firm grounding. You've read around, you're interested, you've kept that enthusiasm going through that path, you've taken on the information, you seek what you want to do with that information. Excuse me, the iPad's being slow. And it gives you a full grounding in the pagan path or the witch path, and it means you have read around. And you have listened to different people's points of view on the YouTubes, and you've watched videos that you can get your hands on, and you gather that information. The Celtic path, the pagan path, there is work involved, there is reading involved, there's learning involved. But for me, the path of the Morrigan is the most intensive of all of them. I mean, I'm going to say that because, let's see if I can find a good picture to show it. Just work, iPad, I swear to... It's a wonder I got to read the whole poem out without it blowing up. I don't know, stupid technology. Right. So definitely do as much reading around on the subject as you can. That's the first piece of advice. Like I said, I can't tell you that you are chosen by the Morrigan or not. It's a bit like love, you'll know. And you can't confuse her. Now, I don't agree with... I've seen two different approaches with this. I've seen people who try and scare people off, and then I have seen people who are like, everybody should embrace it. And it's like, it's not for everyone. There's a very, you know, it's a very intensive, it's a very introspective path. It makes you look at yourself, and it makes you think what you have done wrong in your life, and your weaknesses, and how you can best improve yourself. And that's for life. That's not a little bit of shadow work, a little bit of introspection, and you can go la la la, and then, you know, it's not deep, dark and scary all the time either. If you haven't got the ability to really take everything with a sense of humour, then you're gonna kind of this limited point. So that's one of my favourites, but that's a bit darker. I don't want to share darker pictures of the Morrigan. That's a good one. If it'll load. We'll find out. We'll find out. Come on. I know, it's a hardship doing what you're supposed to do. iPads. Gotta hate them. I'm just going to show you, if I can, this picture, because I think it really drives home. I would drive home if this would work. Sort of misconceptions. You know, she's not dark, scary, gonna smite your enemies. She's not. She's more likely to shout at you than anything else. She makes you examine what honour is. And a lot of people sort of say and do things that are pretty dishonourable in her name, and I wouldn't. And, you know, this whole scare tactic that comes around, oh, the Morrigan's dark and scary and it's going to punish you. And there are a lot of people who have actually come to me and said that they've had really negative experiences with followers of the Morrigan who have used them and lied to them, and all in the name of the Morrigan. And I'm like, what? Who are these people? I'm guessing the Morrigan has never listened to them a day in their life, because if she had, she'd be pissed. No, it's not going to work. Alright, fine. I give up. The iPad is not going to work. Seeing crows doesn't necessarily mean anything. I've had that question as well. Does seeing crows mean it's the Morrigan? No, the crow is associated with so many gods and goddesses. I have literally just done a video about raven and crow. Well, more raven, but it applies to crow magic as well. And that sort of discusses some of the different gods and goddesses associated with ravens. There are ravens and crows across all cultures, across all pantheons that I've come into contact with. They're associated with Kali in the Indian pantheon. They're associated with Odin in the Nordic pantheon. You know, it goes on. There's Bran in the Celtic pantheon, who is his name means raven, is god, and he's associated with them. And it goes on and on and on and on. There, you know, I've forgotten the other examples I had, but go check out that video. And it could just be that you need to work with raven and crow energy in terms of your totem, or a messenger, or a spiritual animal that is calling your attention, because you need to focus on messages of the divine, for example, or messages in a generalized sense. So that was another question about ravens and crows. That's, you know, ravens and crows are as associated with Morrigan as other animals are. Eels, horses, wolves, Recently I was talking to people in a Morrigan group about the fact that we felt very strongly that dragonfly could actually be associated with the Morrigan, even though it wasn't associated with the Morrigan in the traditional text. We are not ancient Celts, people. So what a goddess means to us today is not the same as what a goddess meant to the ancient Celts. They were bloodthirsty, they lived and died by the sword. They were defined by war. They had and did live like that. We don't. And it's useless pretending that we are ancient Celts, so she's not just a war goddess to us, and wasn't to the ancient Celts either, but we have evolved. So has she. And yeah, so in response to another question I had about her being just a war goddess, how I was asked sort of, how can you follow a goddess of war? How can you? Quite easily. Because she's not just a goddess of war and death. And the whole, I think people are afraid of war and death, and then they sort of interplay their fears with the goddess Morrigan. I was talking a bit about how Raven and Crow magic in the Raven video can show us what society is afraid of, because people attach their fears and things to animals such as the Raven. So this is kind of true of the Morrigan as well, that popular consciousness associates certain symbols with their in psyche fears. So ravens become a fear of tricksters, being tricked, a loss of pride, basically, and they're the fear of a female war goddess because the war isn't a dominion of women or some nonsense. And then there's the shadow work of the self, fear of the unknown, fear of the deep psyche, fear of your own shadow work, and that's something tied into the how do you know. The Morrigan doesn't necessarily show up amidst crisis either. A lot of Morrigan's sons and daughters know what it is to actually have a really difficult life. I know more women because of this who are abuse, who the Morrigan has spoken to. Now, from my perspective and my understanding, she tends to show up to the survivors. They have proven themselves, and there's an element of proving yourself all your life to be the Morrigan's chosen priest or priestess. That's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. But she seems to watch and observe. She's the silent watcher, and she will put you through the rigmarole herself, and then she will test you, and she will basically, she's seen what you have survived, she's seen what troubles you've been through, she's seen how much you've dealt with, she sees how honourably you behave, she sees how you act, she sees whether or not you're all talk or your action as well. All these things she brings in and sort of sees on high. And if she decides that you are honourable and she wants to work with you, she will make herself known. I understand that a lot of people want to seek the Morrigan out because she's a strong goddess and a strong female goddess, but it's really, that's such an underwhelming way of looking at it. Forgive me, but she's the biggest pain in your ass that you will ever know. And she likes being that way. She is the thorn in your butt to get you up and going. I have no idea what this was. But there is that side, that powerful encourager side, but she's also got a deep sense of humour. She's a sexual goddess. She's a goddess of life and of light. I honestly believe in working with her in 3 aspects as well as her whole aspect, because I don't think you can separate them. And she's all of these things. She shapeshifts, she changes, she moves, she's fluid, she's primal. And therefore she cannot be easily defined. And I'm trying my best to answer your questions, and I realise that it's a bit, you know, it's complicated. Calling her a war goddess and nothing else is a bit like saying the ocean is a drop of water. That's my daft voice, apparently. Wah, wah, wah. No idea. But she has a fantastic sense of humour. She laughs at me all the time. She's like, "You're dumb." I'm like, "I know, but you love me, right?" And she's like, "I love you, idiot." And that's it. You know, it's not always serious. It's not always light. It's not always dark. It's not anything. It's a personal path. So I can't tell you, no one can tell you, but you can't mistake her. And if she doesn't speak to you, that's not. So there's a lot of people that seem to think that by saying a goddess isn't going to speak to someone, or is less likely to speak to someone, or doesn't speak to everyone, there seems to be some sort of ego attached in saying that she does speak to you. And I was that someone addressed this recently with me. They were talking to me about it, and I was like, well, how does that happen? Like, because it's not about you. I was like, I don't understand that at all. It's like, just because a god or goddess isn't right for you doesn't mean anything. It's like trying to try on a size shoe that's too small for you, or too big for you, or just doesn't fit. Or, you know, I don't know. Clothing was the easiest analogy. Try to eat foods that you know upset and disagree with you just because it's cool. You should work with what balances you, is what we're going for, what works for you. There is no pride and no shame in working with any particular god or goddess. To be called a son or daughter of any god or goddess is a privilege and an honour. There is nothing, there is no reason to be like, oh, this is a dark goddess and this person follows her, therefore I want to. It's like, you're not me, okay? You're not this person, you're not that person. You do what's right for you. You seek what's right for you, and you will be better for it, happier for it, more at peace for it. Find the god or goddess that most deeply resonates and connects in your heart, in your soul, and go with that. Form that bond, form that relationship, do that ritual. Right, so I think the final question was about offerings for the Morrigan, and I kind of got a little bit on a little bit of a talk with the other questions. So the last question was about, what do you give an offering for the Morrigan? Again, this is personal, and by personal it means that I am not going to be sharing all of what I do. I've said on other videos that I do stuff for the Morrigan every day, and I have been told by her not to share that, so I don't. There is a strong energy around right now. Excuse me. You shouldn't share everything, and I share a lot. Woo! But I don't share nearly half of what I do, and especially not private and personal practice. So, I've said in other videos, so we will quickly recap. Words are free, and you can put into your own words something of a, you know, it doesn't have to be a poem, that's just an example. Words, a phrase, a prayer, a poem to give an offering. You can create your own herbal blend, or buy a herbal blend and imbue it yourself. Or crystals. Now, like crystals, I've said before, the crystals I think really resonate with the Morrigan. Shift and change. Find it out, figure it out, walk your path. Labradorite is the one that I most associate right now. that's not in a book anywhere. You know, you can give stick incensers, you can give food and drink, but you know, time, energy and breath is the most important, and that's in a video somewhere talking about offerings in general. Time, energy and breath, and then whatever feels right. Live and learn. And that is it from me and it from Bran, and I hope that answered some of the questions. Many blessings.